My name is Nick Dykstra, and I will be presenting Part 1 to Mexico's proposal for shared responsibility in the global drug dilemma within this United Nations General Assembly special session on drugs. Beginning by highlighting the problem at hand, we would like to point out that while Mexico has encountered our fair share of strain with illicit drug trade, this is not our battle alone. Instead, this is a global issue which can be supported by data that has been brought forward by this General Assembly. From this organization, it has been reported that the global monetary value of illegal drug trading has surpassed $1 trillion annually and still shows signs of increasing. It is then by serving as a land bridge between two continents that Mexico has become one of the primary victims in this rising global drug trade. As drug organizations or cartels have quickly grown more powerful, the Mexican government has fought but struggled to harness the escalating dilemma of global drug trade. Among the primary areas of concern facing our battle against drugs have been our proximity to the greatest consumer market in the world at our northern border and the supply markets which are primarily located to our south. Being caught in the middle of this market has thus led to increased popularity of our workers being drawn into the financial gains to be made in this market. Therefore, the levels of drug production have also grown within our borders. With this increased flow of production of illicit drugs, cartels have therefore taken a foothold in our society, as their power often influences or overwhelms our criminal justice system. Due to the growing concern for this unwanted trade in our communities, we have also experienced a rise of vigilante groups in rural areas who have fought against the rise of drug trafficking in order to maintain order in their locations where the local law enforcement has failed. By taking a closer look at the pattern of drug trafficking surrounding Mexico, you'll notice that we are trapped between the world's three largest suppliers of cocaine, which are Bolivia, Colombia, and Peru, and the United States, which, as I stated earlier, is the greatest consumer economy in the world. Realizing the problems with the inflow of drugs from these regions to the United States worked to dismember the Colombian drug cartels in the early 80s and 1990s with plans such as the Planned Colombia program. However, while these programs garnered short-term gains, as a couple of the top Colombian cartels fell apart, the programs negatively affected our Mexican society in the long run, as the illicit drug trade was redirected to the new trade routes that were aimed to cross through our borders. Among the reasoning for this changed route were that the routes were seen as being safer for drug traffickers. Additionally, the sudden flow of drug traffic across our borders caught us unprepared, as Mexican drug enforcement was unneeded and therefore barely existed prior to this change. As our law enforcement was unable to get ahead of the new pattern of illicit drug trade, cartels have been able to thrive. Once again, the driving conditions behind the growth of these organizations had been the failure of the United States-led initiative in Colombia, which aimed to eliminate drug flow into their country. Instead, their plan simply redirected the flow of drugs and gave power to new drug organizations. Among these drug organizations, which were able to significantly grow their power in our country, there's the 7 primary drug cartels which are listed here. And the primary ones which I'll highlight are the Sinaloa, which is the largest and strongest cartel in the Americas. There's the Gulf Cartel, which is among the first to have a dedicated military, and the Knights Templar, which is a newer group that is known for their brutal methods. As cartels and trafficking have grown in power, so too have the producers of drugs within our borders. However, our struggle to control production within our country is once again a problem that has been greatly affected by external factors to our country. As in the 1990s, methamphetamines were mainly produced and trafficked by small-scale producers and outlaw motorcycle gangs. However, the clampdown on these producers and gangs by the United States government agencies drove production laboratories across the border into Mexico, where producers were able to improve the quality of the drugs while cutting costs. These elements thus helped the amphetamine market to thrive, as can be demonstrated by the estimates of the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, which believes that Mexican cartels produce and distribute greater than 70% of the methamphetamine supply in the United States. With high rates of production and trafficking, there is also said to be an increased availability to drugs in Mexico. Specifically, drug consumption is thought to be higher in northern regions of Mexico, where shipments are often delayed before being shipped into the United States. For example, over 14% of Tijuana residents have claimed to have tried illicit drugs, which is a percentage that is nearly double the national rate of drug use in Mexico. Additionally, with the growing drug culture, Mexico's youth have been shown to be shifting toward the usage of stronger drugs, as research has indicated that cocaine usage among adolescents may have surpassed their marijuana usage. Due to the expanding drug culture and power held by cartels, Mexico's violence problems have increased. This has been an ongoing problem within Mexico's borders, as drug-related crime has been on the rise since 1990. And while there have been attempts to eliminate this problem in recent years, as President Calderon promised to eradicate the drug cartels, who have been a great source of violence, attempts to solve the problem have failed, as military operations have simply led to smaller but greater numbers of cartels and drug trafficking organizations. Evidence of the ongoing violence persists, as earlier this month, 47 skulls were uncovered on Mexico's eastern coast. With a greater number of cartels and increasing violence, Mexico's criminal justice system has been overburdened. Among the primary reasoning for this has been the drug money, which has challenged the integrity of our system. The drug money has shown to be an influential part in Mexico, as police officers can easily be purchased due to their lower salaries. And these salaries are said to be in the neighborhood of about $10,000 per year. So it is easy for the drug traffickers to double or even triple these salaries by simply asking the officers to turn a blind eye and offer these smaller sums of money. The lack of police protection has thus led to increased vigilante groups who engage in violent crime to rid their areas of drug traffickers who have come to their regions. However, despite the efforts of vigilante groups and members of Mexico's criminal justice system, drug usage was able to increase by over 1 million users from 2002 to 2008 alone.
Hello, my name is Megan Singleterry, and I will be giving the second half of this presentation focusing on solutions. Also, I would like to thank my partner Nick for his work putting together the first part of this presentation. So thanks. Over the past 56 years, 3 major treaties have been put forth by the United Nations to address the global illicit drug trade. Mexico is a party to all of these treaties. But it is the view of the Mexican government that while well-intentioned, these treaties simply have not done enough to manage or eradicate the global drug issue. In order to better address the global drug issue, President Peña Nieto has prepared a proposal for this United Nations General Assembly's special session on drugs, which I'll summarize on his behalf. This proposal's aim is to confront the global drug problem with the idea that it is the responsibility of not just one country or organization, but the entire international community to work together in order to save the lives of those addicted to drugs and those affected by the violence caused by producing and trafficking drugs. There are many ways that Mexico is already working to address this issue, which will be outlined after the proposal. But Mexico needs the cooperation and help of the entire international community in order to fully succeed. We can't do it alone. As part of President Peña Nieto's proposal, He has called for better coordination and collaboration among all countries, UN specialized agencies, and other organizations within the international community. With better collaboration and a more expansive exchange of information and more joint actions to dismantle criminal organizations, we will be able to strengthen the front against transnational organized crime. Mexico also seeks to promote more public policies and programs to deal with drugs, and in accordance with this idea, would like to align any new drug policy measures with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which aims to end poverty and inequality and combat climate change. President Peña Nieto has also asked that the international community initiate and fund programs in communities that are directly affected by organized crime and the illicit drug trade. Programs should be funded that would promote education, employment, and recreational activities, as well as programs for violence and crime prevention, and those which discourage cultivation of narcotic crops. Drug use worldwide should be viewed as a public health problem rather than an action warranting outlandish drug-related prison sentences, which degrade human dignity. Further, imprisoning nonviolent drug offenders only results in rises in recruitment for gangs and organizations that participate in the illicit drug trade. With that in mind, Mexico proposes that drug laws worldwide be reformed, including the decriminalization of marijuana for medical and personal use, which would also make it more available for medical and scientific research. Additionally, prison sentences for nonviolent drug offenders should be lessened, and comprehensive treatment for drug addiction should be available to all addicts, including those in prison. Lastly, a messaging campaign targeted at children and young people to discourage drug use should be enacted on an international scale in order to attempt to drive down both demand for and addiction to illicit drugs. Mexico has been working domestically and internationally in order to address all of the points made in President Peña Nieto's proposal. On an international scale, Mexico has partnered with the United States through the Merida Initiative since 2008 to disrupt organized criminal groups, institutionalize reforms to sustain the rule of law and support for human rights, create a 21st century border, and build strong and resilient communities. This initiative helps at-risk youth, works to reduce drug demand, administers law enforcement and crime prevention programs, including comprehensive training, and promotes human dignity. In collaboration with the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, Mexico's Institute of Statistics has established the Regional Center of Excellence on Government, Public Security, Victimization, and Justice. The goals of this office are to improve data gathering and analysis in order to inform policy decisions and promote the exchange of standardized information between countries. The Mexican government has instituted several domestic reforms, including the National Program for Social Prevention of Violence and Crime. This interagency program focuses on alleviating poverty and inequality, addiction prevention, education and extracurricular activities for young people, employment training and opportunities, and community revival projects. In program communities, there has been a 35% reduction in violence, 4 times as much as in the rest of Mexico. Mexico has also put in place the Program for Prevention and Integral Care of Addictions with the intent of viewing drug abuse as a public health problem rather than a law enforcement problem, and to assist in providing comprehensive treatment and rehabilitation programs to those already addicted to illicit substances. The Mexican Armed Forces are working within this program on the National Effort Against Addictions, or ENFA. ENFA is a coordinated campaign for addiction prevention, where members of the military are dispatched into rural communities in order to educate citizens about the negative effects of using drugs. Lastly, after much scholarly debate with experts about the advantages and disadvantages of legalizing marijuana, President Peña Nieto has decided to start the process of decriminalizing marijuana for medicinal purposes in Mexico. He will also seek to increase the amount of marijuana that people are legally allowed to have for personal use, which will help to decrease the amount of people imprisoned for drug offenses. Decriminalization will make marijuana more available for medical and scientific research, and will help to weaken the illegal drug market as well as alleviate the prison system of overcrowding and provide a better ability to treat addicts who would have normally been imprisoned. To conclude, the global illicit drug trade affects all countries and has cost thousands of lives in Mexico alone. The entire world shares responsibility for this unfortunate dilemma. Mexico is asking the international community to continue the progress that we have already made on this issue by using our proposal as guidance and our programs as models for greater international reforms. We know we can eradicate the global drug problem if more countries choose to view drug abuse as a public health problem, fund rule of law initiatives to strengthen their criminal justice systems, especially in areas where drug violence is most prevalent, and most importantly, collaborate more closely with the international community in order to fight this issue. Please join Mexico, and together we will end this global scourge. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.